Well, welcome. It's Friday, the 20th of June, 2025, and we're going to make a start now with our Black History Conversations. We're small and select at the moment, but often others join us as the session goes on, so that's fine. But we're doing the recording today, and today we're especially remembering our brother, our friend, Professor Sir Geoffrey Palmer. But we'll start off with our session this morning. I've got a PowerPoint, so I'm just going to pop that up first of all for you to see. Hang on a minute. Of course, I'm not organised here. Yes, oops, wrong one. Oh no, it is the right one. Okay, so Black History Conversations. I went back a long way and put a new date on this this PowerPoint, but it's just to remember that the logo that we chose such a while ago was the logo for of
Sankofa.
teaches us that we must go back to our roots in order to move forward. That is, we should reach back and gather the best of what our past has to teach us so that we can achieve our full potential as we move forward. Whatever we've lost, forgotten, forgone, or been stripped of can be reclaimed, revived, preserved, and perpetuated. And probably that's just what we're about. So if we go over to you now, Dr. Vivian Crawford, to start the session, please.
Thank you, Liz. Let us pray. In reverence, we acknowledge the presence of God, who is our maker, defender, redeemer, and friend. And in this consciousness, gracious God, we know you are the King of glory. And we seek your guidance on this relay of life. You have given to each of us a baton, and we pray for your guidance, your strength, that we continue on this race and do not drop the baton. We thank you for the participants of this meeting, those who are here, those who will join, and for the vision you shared with Liz for the continuity of this purpose. We would remember and thank you for lending to us Professor Sir Geoffrey Palmer and all those who were on that relay team with him. We thank you for his vision, and among them to point out to us that in the 18th century, it was regarded as an age of enlightenment, but that light did not come for all or was not shared with all. And we pray that we do not falter, but share that light. We'll remember on the 22nd, Windrush Day, Empire Windrush Day, and for all those who came to serve, we remember their challenges, but you were there to guide them. We place this meeting into your hands. Remember planet Earth. Remember those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Those who are in need, for they shall be helped. We remember that we are your servants, and to you be the glory and the honor, for with you all will be done. For where God guides, he provides, so all will be well, and so be it. Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much, Vivian. Thank you so much there. In your prayer, you mentioned two of the things that we're going to be, two issues today we're going to be focusing on. First of all, we'll talk about the life and times of the wonderful Professor Sir Geoff Palmer. And I've got a few slides to show about that, and then I'm going to hand over to Garrick. And Vivian, you're there with Professor Palmer's book about the Enlightenment. Thank you very much. Hold it up for us.
I have some memorabilia I'll share.
Right. So you'll share that. And the
Yeah.
other thing you mentioned was that on the 22nd of June, it's Windrush Day, and this year we're going to be helping. Learning Links International is going to be supporting the National Wales Windrush Day service of Thanksgiving here in Bangor Cathedral. So we're really, really proud of that. And we're very, very proud that our colleague Audley Davidson from Kingston College has provided some of the music for this. Sadly, he is not over here with us in Bangor for the heat wave we're experiencing now, but it would have been good timing. But we thank him very much indeed and look forward at some stage to being able to welcome him to join us in our activities over here. And also, thank you very much indeed, Vivian, for reminding us that on the 21st of June, it is the anniversary of Lord Mansfield's judgment, that very, very significant judgment. That was 1772. So maybe we'll say a little bit more about that later. But I'm just going to just do the few little PowerPoints that I managed to get my act together to do. Oh dear. Can't get my act together at all today. So back with the Zoom, on with the share, click, click. We've talked about that. We always acknowledge the injustices of the actions taken by the British and other European countries that invaded and took possession of the islands in the Caribbean Sea, as well as the continents of North and South America. In addition, we also recognise the exploration of the great continents of Africa, Australia, and the many other parts of the world in the centuries of ongoing colonisation and the ongoing exploitation which resulted in the destruction and destabilisation of so many nations, peoples, and cultures. So, The Voice was one of the newspapers that's included some really significant tributes to the life of Sir Geoff Palmer. As Scotland's first black professor, the pioneering scientist has been hailed for his courage, intellect, and lifelong fight for racial justice. And it's an honour that three of us are here today not only had met Sir Geoff Palmer, but also spent time with him, got to know him, and learned from him. And that information there you can look up on the Voice online. But sadly, it is that we mark the loss of Sir Geoff Palmer, who passed away at the age of 85. He was a trailblazing academic. He was Britain's first black professor and a relentless advocate for equality and historical justice. He was born in Jamaica in 1940 and arrived in the UK in the 1950s. Sir Geoff overcame adversity to become a distinguished scientist and campaigner, most recently known for leading conversations on Scotland's colonial legacy. His death represents a profound loss to the nation, as well as his family and friends who knew him. A legacy that is woven into the fabric of Britain. A courageous voice for justice and equality. Okay, the professor was long associated with Heriot-Watt's University in Edinburgh, serving as Chancellor and Professor Emeritus for many years. He was also that prominent public figure in other fields, and the review of the legacy of slavery and colonialism was something that he led in the Scottish capital in Edinburgh. The university hailed him as a trailblazer, an inspiration within higher education and across the wider society. So I'm now going to pass on to you, Garrick, for your thoughts today.
Yes. Well, Sir Geoff Palmer is somebody I knew personally. I've actually visited his home in Scotland. He's been to Liverpool quite a number of times as a guest speaker. And Sir Geoff is a very modest person in my view. Although he started life with very difficult circumstance,
and I've mentioned this before, he was labeled as a educational subnormal. Now, when you put that label on a black youth boy, you know, carrying that label could not be easy. Yet, despite what was said, he knew what he wanted to do in life. There is a video where he talks about his mother, and his mother arrived in the UK, I think 1951, and he joined his mother in 55. But he always talk about his grounding, the foundation that a mother and a grandparents give to a child. And I remember many conversations, not just academic conversation or historic conversation, but for me, Sir Geoff is known for many things. He's known as a scientist for the work he's done in brewery with the barley, but he's also known for his probably the more important work of equality, civil rights, human rights. So when you look at his achievement, he would value the achievement in human rights far more than anything else. And there is a video in circulation where he talk about removing statues, but he says what we should do is to challenge racism and try to remove racism. Now, what he was indicating that throughout his life, he had experienced racism within the academic field. However, he continued, and what you've just put about his achievement, Liz, in the academic field and becoming the first Black professor in Scotland, but also an inspiration for other Black young person, male and female, because if Sir Geoff could do it being educational subnormal, then other people can do it, and they have done it. So he's inspirational to thousands of people. There is something about the way he look at education, and all his students, he pay particular attention to his student individually. So he would have supervision of maybe 30 students doing masters, whatever. But on an individual basis, he give those students that individual attention. And I was able to witness in one of his sessions when that took place. That sort of human, it's not just about delivering a lecture, but it's about that interaction with your student. And it's also how the student see their professor and that relationship that both student and tutor have. I remember he told me a story which I knew nothing about at the time. He came to Liverpool. We had invited him to Liverpool for a particular event to do with Black sailors in Toxteth. And we sat on the same table in the park. And at the time we had artists performing. Carol Thompson was one of the artists that was performing, and other artists. And we sat, and he was telling me about Rodney Street in Liverpool. And if anybody know anything about Rodney Street, you would know Gladstone, that's his birthplace. And there's a plaque in Rodney Street bear that name. I think it's number 62. We also know that Gladstone has the largest, or had the largest, plantation of slave for the entire. He tipped the record. But what Sir Geoff Palmer told me that I knew nothing about was that Rodney Street belonged to the people. And I didn't really appreciate that. Belonged to the people. So it was named after Admiral Rodney. And Admiral Rodney, as Vivian would know, is antics in the West Indies. But what Sir Geoff Palmer said, did you know that Rodney Street belonged to the people? Belonged to you? And I didn't pay much attention to the depth of that conversation. And he's got evidently records about Rodney Street. And of course, when you start to look at individual associated with Rodney Street and Gladstone, you get a number of other individuals like Roscoe. All these people were all sort of the people of the day. And of course, as we said, deep into transatlantic slavery. Well, that was something that I learned from Sir Geoff Palmer. The other thing that I asked him the question once, why did he go to Scotland? You know, being such a cold place, and you come from St. Elizabeth. And for most of us who have moved out of our comfort zone to another city or another place, usually it's a woman, it's a female that take us to that place. Relationship. See? So you would go, like my daughter, she married a Scot, so she's living in Stirling. Yeah. So you go where the relationship started. Yeah? Or the origin of that. And both myself, Garth Dallas, we're a member of the Liverpool Commonwealth Association. It's been running for 10 years. And Sir Geoff Palmer have always spoke about the Commonwealth. And last year, there was an important conference held in Ghana to do with reparation. Prior to that conference, the Prime Minister of Guyana, who is of Indian extraction, been pushing the agenda for indentured workers for compensation, for reparation. And I had the conversation with Sir Geoff Palmer about this. And he said, there is no way that CARICOM could accept that, because chattel slavery is completely different from indentured labor. Indians did not serve on plantation. Indians did not suffer what the Africans suffer on plantation. So I said, okay, well, that's great. I would like you to be a guest speaker at the conference in Ghana, where this agenda will be talked about. And he was able to make that contribution to the Ghanaian conference about indentured labor and whether reparation should be on the agenda for those individuals. That was last year, 2024. In relation to reparation, that's a massive global conversation. And even as we speak today in 2025 of June, that conversation is still taking place. And still, although there's a framework, there are still issues surrounding how that compensation, reparation will be assessed and to whom it will be paid and who will qualify for reparation. That's a conversation for another day. And there are people, Pan-Africanism, people, organization, well involved in that conversation, that global conversation. But for me, the most simple things is just the everyday conversation. And Professor Palmer was the person that you could have that conversation. It didn't have to be a big conversation. He had his challenges in Scotland where many academics will challenge him, right? Because they did not want to accept what he was advocating to as accurate truth. And of course, we all know that in history, not everything that is recorded in history is correct, because who recorded it and why they've recorded that way. And so he would challenge many of those academics in Scotland. And I would always read the tweets followers as to when he put a tweet out and who responded and what negative thing they would say. But what I appreciate with Sir Geoff Palmer, he always have the evidence to back up what he's saying. That is very important. We can say a lot of things, but we have to have the evidence. We have to have the documentation. Yeah? And that's what he had. He had the evidence and the documentation to prove what he's saying is correct. I think probably his most notable achievement would be getting Glasgow University to accept their involvement in slavery and to make reparation and create a give back to the community and the people that are part of that ancestry slavery. I've always said Scotland led the way in Glasgow. Other universities should be following suit. We call them the Red Brick University, the Russell Group universities. And wherever you find those universities, you will also find the involvement of slavery and the wealth that they acquire for their institution. I'll pause there.
Thank you very much indeed, Garrick. Thank you very much indeed. And Vivian, I know you want to join in today with some comments and some memories. You were making us quite chuckle last week when you remembered meeting up with Sir Geoff.
I think Garrick has said it all. How dare I speak after Garrick, but to thank you, Garrick, to thank you, Liz. And just want to say that I want to start with Garrick's point about truth and evidence. So I would say that I'm receiving the baton of truth carried by evidence. And to say that there's an African proverb which says that truth is like oil. The more water you pour on it, the more it floats. And it takes time, yes, but the truth in the end will be revealed. Admiral Penn and General Venables captured Jamaica in 1655. And one of the sons of Admiral Penn founded the colony of Pennsylvania in America, hence it's named after him. He was a Quaker and he prayed this famous prayer, which has always guided me. God, help me not to condemn what I do not understand. God, help me to not to condemn what I do not understand. Because so often in life, I now know at my tender age, the reason why we need to forgive people is because they did things that they did not understand. My journey with regard to Sir Geoffrey Palmer started in 2013. I was invited as the guest at the diaspora banquet in Birmingham. My brother and I were waiting at the hotel for a taxi, and this gentleman came up steps and said, "You guys, you're going to the banquet?" I said, "Sure, who are you?" He said, he's Geoffrey Palmer. I said, "Wow, good." And then I told him, we'll wait for you. He said, "You would?" Yeah, I said, "Sure." So we waited, and when we returned from the banquet, we spoke going almost 2 a.m. And what was truly moving for me, something I cannot forget, by the time I reached Jamaica, and as a museum curator, in this paper was posted, I still have it, package and the book. The Enlightenment abolished. I also have some letters that he wrote, his Christmas card 2013, and the publication, The Forgotten Diaspora, some notes that he wrote. So Geoffrey said he came from a place, and of course, the letter. He came from a place in Jamaica called Malvern in St. Elizabeth. Now, I was a bit surprised to see his complexion, because the persons from Malvern look, they are Simon and Liz relatives. I always tell Liz when she comes to Jamaica to tell them she's from St. Elizabeth. That's safe passage. But quite seriously, he came from Malvern in St. Elizabeth, and he lived in Allman Town. Now, Allman Town is near to the National Heroes Park. And I was amazed when he said he walked the journey from Allman Town to go to North Street Congregational School. I just wonder why he would have gone that far. I don't know if his parents were Moravians from St. Elizabeth. They could have been, because the Moravians in 1753, they invited persons from Europe to come, the Foster brothers, and teach enslaved literacy. The Moravians started that movement in 1753, and they started under a tree at a place now called Alligator Pond. And then they moved to a building, Litties. They used sticks and mud and thatch and built Jamaica's first school at Litties in St. Elizabeth. Then the community built a pond so that people who didn't have water could have access. So that was his kind of background, that inquiring mind. Then from there, he went to a school called Kingston Senior School. That's near to National Heroes Park. It's now Kingston High School. But what amazed me, and what Garrick said about truth and evidence, when he came to England, prejudiced, he was placed, he told me, in a class for retarded students. One look at him, he's retarded. But what saved him? What saved him? And that is what saved Raheem Sterling, the great footballer. Let me pause to say the great footballer was invited, his mother was invited to England. And a week before she should go to England, she got a job. She was unemployed. So she told her sister, hey, I can't come because I got a job. And the sister said, whoa, we're going to lose all that money. They're not going to refund us. And the sister said, then why don't send the little boy? Let him come and spend the holiday with us. Raheem was seen in the park playing football. A gentleman passed by, observed him, and the rest is history. What saved our own professor was cricket. And you can read about that history.
Yes. Yes.
And when I read in the Enlightenment that he was now among Eton and Harrow and Winchester, I said, wow, he made it. And his photograph is there, playing the cricket, and how the teacher guided him. It's such a beautiful story. And to know that you are placed in a class for retarded, just one look at you, and you are retarded. But cricket came to his rescue. I'm saying all of this to say that I hope that we will lobby, that there will be a space at the Heriot-Watt University, a space to be called the Sir Geoffrey Palmer space. I don't like the word, the nomenclature museum, because right there you are thinking of something else. I prefer the word space, because he moved from one space in Jamaica to another space in the world, in Scotland in this case, and it has made all the history. We didn't know, I didn't know all of this. I bear a Scottish name. Crawford is surely not African,
No.
but Balcarres. And in another few weeks, I'll be giving a presentation about Governor Balcarres, how he invited, they got the people from Flagstaff in St. James, invited them to what they thought was a party, and they were drinking, and he put alcohol in it named after a certain bird, a vulture, and the people were intoxicated, and they did not know. This happened in 1795. They were on a ship to Nova Scotia, Canada, where the winter killed half of them and the remainder sent to Sierra Leone. I didn't know that the Scots had such a hold in Jamaica. We bear their names. A Maroon community called Scots Hall. The British sent them there to interact with the Maroons, to interact with them so that they would know their secrets and what have you. The African proverb, truth is like oil. The more water you pour on it, the more it will float. So those are my few observations about Sir Geoffrey. Of course, he was given an honorary degree from the University of Technology.
Yes.
Thank you so much. That was fabulous to think some more. There's just too many stories of the wonderful things that Sir Geoff did, and I think my story is that way back years before COVID, Yasser Safari was working in the UK and wanted the opportunity to meet with Sir Geoff because he wanted to understand these principles of brewing that he had discovered, so that Yassus could apply this to his fledgling activities to produce wine. And so he spent a couple of days in Edinburgh and Glasgow, looking at the different places there and understanding more. And one thing about Sir Geoff was that he was so gentle in his and patient in his presentation, and so he was able to share information about Glasgow, a place I'd never been to before. We were down at the docks and looking and learning and seeing Jamaica Street and the different places. And then subsequently, I met up with him a couple of times later when I was in Scotland. But the very first time I think I met Sir Geoff was at that fabulous dinner hosted by the Institute of Jamaica Nationals in Birmingham. Because Vivian, I'm going to pay tribute to you now, because thankfully you're with us. But Sir Geoff was also there because Sir Geoff was the president of the Institute of Jamaica Nationals, so he would make his way down to Birmingham for these special dinners in Black History Month. And Vivian, you spoke about our shared history. And it was that moment that, on reflection, I look back, that I understand that I recall understanding that you could understand about Black history, about our shared history. Now, always before, I'd heard the stories, but never really with any full or understanding or any feeling that it was something that I could understand more about, because the records of our difficult shared history, the British difficult shared history, the European difficult shared history, seem to be hidden away. They seem to be in academic textbooks. They seem to be on dusty shelves where dissertations ended up being posted. But that evening, it was as if the scales came off my eyes and I was able to understand that it was possible to understand about shared history. And I know that Sir Geoff would have been part of the team that organised getting you there to that event. And it was so very special, very special. And it wasn't till some years later that I actually contacted you again through Dotsy Gordon. Do you remember? And we began to get to know one another. But you were the inspiration way back then, and this has carried on and will carry on for me. And I hope that through Black History Conversations and the very significant contributions that have been made by Sir Geoff Palmer, who would join us from time to time in different editions. We haven't had a chance to check back which sessions he actually joined us for, but we were following his progress as he was dealing with the Dundas challenges in Edinburgh and the those difficult days when, but important days after the death of George Floyd, after the murder of George Floyd, when all our communities across the UK were required to really examine what their shared history was. And so Geoff would update us about what was happening, and it was just remarkable. But not just Sir Geoff, so many other people have contributed so significantly to Black History Conversations. Professor Fakshat from Nigeria, he was fantastic. Dr. Bunmi Odison from speaking from Canada.
Canada, yeah.
So many different people have joined us, inspired to have conversations and understand more about our shared history. And the golden nugget here, of course, is you, Dr. Vivian Crawford, that you attend the sessions and share the sessions, share the responsibilities, provide us with ideas, but also that you're able to share the incredible knowledge and understanding that you have about your very wonderful country, Jamaica, and its shared history with others around the world, but predominantly with Britain, and helping us to understand our responsibilities and the implications of our shared history. So I thank you so much, Vivian, so much. And yes, what do we say now?
It's interesting you mentioned that, Liz, something really significant, because we're using this terminology, share history. Not everybody's using this terminology. And so, what we're doing, we are actually helping individual to sort of look inwards, as to what they're doing and how they are presenting history. And it's a shame that we're having to say it's Black history, because Black history is the absent of history. That's why we're having to do that. But I would hope that these conversations that we're having, that we can take this conversation into the classroom, whether that would be the children classroom or whether that would be in the university colleges with undergraduates, etc. Because you know even in 2025, there are children who go through their school, their secondary, primary and secondary education, and when they go to university as an undergraduate, that is the only place they see diversity and engage with another person from a different culture, different background, etc. So there are places where there may be one Black person in a class, in a school of 600 or 400. That is still the case in 2025. And I remember people say to me, well, I've never met a Black person until I went to university. I've never spoke to one. So we're trying to change all of that in these conversations that we're having. That we want to take these conversation into places that these conversation is not going into. So we have a responsibility to take it into those places. And this shared history, even within our own Jamaican community, they are learning more about the links between Wales and Jamaica, the links between Scotland and Jamaica, the links between Ireland and Jamaica, and the links between the rest of Europe, etc. But here's the thing, because Vivian mentioned this about Scotland and the color of skin in St. Elizabeth. So my father was born in St. Elizabeth, in a little place called Aberdeen. Okay? And when my father came to England, he said, I want to go to Scotland. I want to see Aberdeen. So I took him to Aberdeen. And he saw Edinburgh Castle. And he said the reason why he wanted to go to Scotland, because he never understood the Scottish culture, where it came from. Born in Aberdeen, yes, going to a school in St. Elizabeth. And don't forget, my father was of Indian extraction, East Indian. So he was what we call a coolie. That complexion, that black hair, yeah. And when I was at school, I was also called coolie because of my light complexion comparing to my other children. So he appreciates Scotland, and he always said to me, when he saw Scotland and what the castle represents, that castle, he looked at it and he said, now I understand the Scottish people, right? What came from Scotland to Jamaica. If he hadn't traveled to Scotland, he would never appreciate why that place was called Aberdeen, named after Scottish people. And I'm also related to the songsters. So the songsters are red people. We all know them, yes? Yeah? So again, it is unusual, Vivian, to see a darker skinned person coming from St. Elizabeth. That is true, because the majority of people from St. Elizabeth is much lighter, or we call them the red people. That's the reality.
To say thank you. To say, Liz, that to tell Garrick that a Sangster was the second prime minister of independent Jamaica.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Sangster.
Yes.
And a relative was
he married to one of my family. Yeah.
Yeah, and the president of the University of Technology, Alfred Sangster.
Yeah.
Also a member of the clan. But in the presentation about Sir Geoffrey, there were 3 schools that you mentioned. And in passing, I just said fortuitous because I understand that enslavement was never taught in British schools. It was not the done thing. And when the Lord Mansfield was having the discussion, there were those in England who thought that this discussion should not take place because it would be against England. The economy would collapse. But the 3 schools, though, I just want a comment about each. That take Eton College, that was mentioned with Sir Geoffrey at the cricket, interacting with those students at cricket. It is said that the Battle of Waterloo was not fought at Waterloo. The success wasn't there. The success started on the playing fields of Eton College, where the Duke of Wellington attended. In the case of Harrow, remember that Sir Winston Churchill, his parents tried to get him in every school. He couldn't pass the entrance exam. And Harrow took him in. And Sir Winston was to say that that is the only headmaster who had vision. He could see what the others didn't. And Sir Winston was invited to speak at Harrow's speech day, they call it. And he said he presented the world's shortest ever speech. He gave 9 words and sat down. Never give up, never give up, never give up. And finally, you spoke there in the presentation at Winchester High. I have said on this program before that Lord Gifford, Tony went to Winchester and he was not taught about enslavement at Winchester. But then I always teased him that he had a rebel spirit in him, because there was a time in England where no hymn could be sung unless the words were directly taken from the Bible. So you would take a passage of the Bible, the Lord is my light and my salvation, and set it to music. You did not have the audacity to compose a poem and set it to music for religious worship. And the headmaster at Winchester, Bishop Ken, he defied all of that. He would have been put on, his neck would have gone on the block. But he defied all of that and wrote this beautiful hymn, Glory to thee, my God, this night, for all the blessings of the light. I'm saying this to say that we are all on that relay team. And God knows we do not know who is going to pass the baton. And we just have to pray to be ready to receive the baton and not to drop it.
Yeah. Excellent.
Thank you so much.
And the thing is, Vivian, we've always appreciate, sometime we're having a conversation and you would bring a date or an individual into that conversation, and how we connect into the bigger picture. Dates are so important in terms of, you know, when that took place, by whom, and you seem to have those dates bedded into your brain. Yeah. So maybe the lotto. So those days, maybe you can try those numbers in the lotto, and you might be able to win something.
Let me tell you something. The Bishop of Jamaica, he became Archbishop of the West Indies. He was in his inaugural presentation, the sermon, they call it Bishop's Charge. He shared with us a story that happened in Jamaica where a security guard left a lot of money in a public space. It could be a restroom. He forgot the money, quite a lot of money. And the lady went in and she saw the money. She made an alarm and handed it over. So there are the vox pop, there are these questions asking members of the public what's their response to that, how they would do it. The first person asked was a man, and the Jamaican man. And he told the interviewer, if it's ever I was my wife, you see, I leave that to your imagination. How could she be so foolish? So the next person asked was a lady. What would she do with the money? What was her response to finding all this money? And the lady replied, well, I am a Christian. So I would take half and give the pastor the other half.
Yes. Well, that's good.
Beautiful.
Share and share alike. Yes.
Beautiful. So I think you're going above and falling round with laughter about that. Dear, I don't know if I need to tell you the story about my winnings today. It's a strange little story, but I'll add it in on that. Here in Bangor in North Wales, to park your car, you have to pay with money, or you have to use your card, which always worries me a little bit. So I prefer to have cash, and I can just put the pound coins in and pay for my parking. Well, I couldn't manage to make this machine work, so I put in some money and it didn't work. And I pressed the button where you get your money back, and I got about 3 times as much as I put in,
You
which
had
was,
a bonus.
which was so lovely. So I'm going to keep that spare money to give
so
to
so
someone
maybe
else if
maybe
they
that
need
was
it.
stuck. That was stuck in there. You see, so you release it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that was really lovely today. And it was really especially nice because I'd been in another car park, opened my purse and realized I hadn't got any money. And a
Mhm.
very nice lady who told me she was a Jehovah's Witness, she gave me the parking money.
Ah.
Was just so grateful to her, and then ended up getting this money out of the machine.
Yeah.
Anyway, we never know what's going to happen, do we? We never know what we're going
No,
to learn
no, you never
next.
know. No.
So, talking about schools, particularly, Vivian, we're all in the business of passing on knowledge and understanding, but we're also all in the business of learning. And that's really, really important. And I had to challenge somebody recently because I teach about our shared history. I share knowledge about our shared history on Black History Conversations, on the course we're running called Sharing Our Black History, on the exchange visits that we're organising to Jamaica. I'm often the person who is leading on sharing knowledge. But I am also a learner and I'm always learning more. And this is why these conversations are so valuable because I learn from you. And Vivian, I'm sure you learn from some of us from the comments we make because none of us can know everything. We're
Yeah.
not artificially intelligent pretending to be.
Yeah.
We have to acknowledge that we don't know everything. And the formal methodologies of teaching about Black history have failed miserably, have failed miserably. So Geoff would be someone who would speak to that because our children in the UK and in Jamaica and other places around the world just don't understand what our human history has involved, as it's evolved, what it's actually been and the implications. And racism is one of the most wicked elements that's come out of this complete ignorance. So if we accept, and I am saying that our present educational methodologies of sharing our understanding of Black history as well as our shared history, because white history and Black history has to merge together to understand just what was going on. And it can happen in classrooms and lecture theatres, but it's also now becoming increasingly recognised the importance of informal learning. If you call it lifelong learning or you can call it non-formal learning, it's really important that this methodology of gaining more knowledge by a combined effort and therefore empowering more and more people to understand about our shared history and the implications of our shared history. It's really a fundamentally important step, I feel, and I feel very strongly about it. And I'm sure Sir Geoff Palmer as well did his part in sharing informally more knowledge. He was very knowledgeable, but he was always learning. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that we need to recognize. And it's important to have a role model like Sir Geoff, who was humble enough to recognize that there was still more for him to learn, and I think we all would share that.
Yeah.
So I have to thank you all so much. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Garrick.
Just one point. If you remember, was it last year, Liz, that we put together a list of speakers that we recognize, and we said we wanted to have our top 10, or I don't remember if it was a top 10 or top 12. And we had these names on this list that we want to recognize and give an award to. And we started off, didn't we, with Maria Sherwood, remember?
Yes, Marika Sher.
And then Jim, you know.
Yes,
So that list is always good to revisit that list, because
yes,
those names are people, and Sir Jeff is on that list. These are people that has made, significant contribution to society in the wider sense, not just in the academia field, but in other areas. And we've put that together because they deserve, and they deserve that recognition. And
and
so
of
Jeff
course,
is
yeah,
on that list. Mm.
certainly was, and also Dr. Vivian Crawford, who's with us today, is on
Yeah,
that list too,
yeah.
because um, we also need to recognize that although it's really important to recognize those of us who are older, who've had the experience of life and times to reflect, but also the younger people who are campaigning their way through. And I
Mm.
think maybe that also will be a way forward
Yes,
for us with Black History Conversations.
yes.
Vivian, is there anything else you wanted to add?
I just to know what's going to happen at Bangor. When is the service, the date?
All right, okay then. We'll just go on to that next.
Yep.
Okay,
Mm.
so just to say, yeah, here we are. So, uh, can't quite say this, but what a fantastic man. What a
Mm.
fantastic man.
Mm. Mm. Yes.
And on Sunday, it's Windrush Day. And fortuitously, it's fallen on a Sunday.
Mm.
So Garrick approached the cathedral team here in North Wales, in Bangor, not quite realising that Daniel's Cathedral here in Bangor is actually the national cathedral of Wales. So our idea of having a Windrush Day service of Thanksgiving here in our cathedral means that we're actually running the national Wales Windrush Day service of Thanksgiving. We don't know of anywhere else, but there is nowhere else in Wales that is the National Cathedral of Wales. Now, it's a very special year this year here in Bangor because it's 1,500 years since St. Daniel founded this community. The word Bangor actually is a name. Bangor was the Welsh name or the name of the language that was spoken at that time, for a fence, like a picket fence. And the picket fence was put around an area of land, and it became the area where St. Daniel settled and developed into this community on the banks of the Menai Straits, and then it developed its churches, its cathedral. So it's going to be very special. It's a choral evensong, but Jamaican style. So I can't wait for this. So we're going to, in the service, Garrick, you're going to read a few verses from Corinthians. Have you been practicing that?
Yeah, that's my weekend work tonight and tomorrow.
Okay, well, I'm going to come on a Zoom call while you practice.
Yeah.
It'll be fascinating to hear that. So we're going to take that out of the New Testament in a Jamaican, which was published
There it is.
bilingually. Just a minute. Well, show us after when I've taken this slide off.
Sorry,
So,
Liz, do that. Sorry, Liz, to interrupt you. Could you share this slide with me on email, please, please?
oh, yes, of course I
Yes,
can.
of course. Yeah.
Yes, Jamaica would love to see that this is taking place.
Right.
I'm
So,
going to send it to the church house. Oh boy. Ooh. Send it to me and then I'll send it to the various spaces.
I will do that. Now, I'm
Thank you very much. Sorry to
just had
interrupt
a
you.
phone call from Jamaica, so we're going to wrap this up pretty quickly. So just to say that we're having a hot buffet afterwards, which will be nice, being catered for by Maxine. And we're also recognising that we've got advice from Audley Davidson from King's College. Now, I'm having a really important phone call here from our team over in
Yeah,
Jamaica.
take the call. Don't lose the call, Liz. Yeah.
Right, excuse me. Hello, Tothnelia.
Hello. Oh, you're on a meeting.
We're just wrapping up our Black History conversations. So, Tothnelia, can I get
Give
back?
me a call when you're finished,
2 minutes. Okay, thank you. Right, okay, we've got a group of young people over in Jamaica at the moment, so that's exciting. So wonderful. Now the service is going to be live streamed, and it's at 3:30 in the afternoon in Jamaica. So I reckon that's about, is that 10:30 in Jamaica?
Yes. Let me just double check.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll
Yes. Yeah.
sure that you, so the place to look is on www.learninglinksinternational.com, and I'm just going to bring that up so that we're quite certain we know where we're looking. Let me just learninglinksinternational.com. So here we are. So if you look up at the moment in time, we haven't got the link on there, but
Not yet. Yeah.
it's going to be there any minute. And I just need to be able to add it. I've just received it today. So here we are, Learning Links International. Welcome. And there's the flyer there. And the live stream link is to follow. So I'm going to put the live stream link here, but we can't have the actual special cathedral logo on until Sunday. It doesn't, and it can open itself up on Sunday. So I'll try and do to that. So you'll be looking out for that. Okay, I'll send that to you.
And anyone that missed the service, they could always revisit on.
Yes, we'll put the link there. So thank you very much indeed. And you've put the link in the chat as well for the Black History Conversations. Now, our colleague Simon Faringo sets up these sessions. He isn't with us to see the session all the way through always, though, because he has to get to school to pick up his daughter. But we'll let you go now. And thank you very much indeed, Dr. Vivian Crawford and Garrick Craig. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Have a good afternoon then.
Bye,
Take
bye.
care.
Good day to you,
Bye.
Vivian.
Go
Thanks.
straight home.